Elijah's shocking triumph, how a humble prophet defied kings with unbelievable miracles. Few knew what truly happened that night in the shadow of Mount Carmel. A lone figure stood against the crashing tide of a nation led astray. Elijah, the prophet wrapped in a cloak of courage and humility, faced the thrumming heartbeat of an angry crowd. Kings had tried to silence him. Yet here he was, a man defying the very forces of power that sought to eradicate all traces of truth. The air crackled, electricity danced between the heavens and earth under a dim crescent moon, the scent of burnt offerings hung heavy. It wafted through the air, mingling with the cries of the people. The king, his eyes glinting with malice, roared for proof. His followers, riled up and zealous, brandished their weapons, the clinking of metal echoing like the pounding of war drums. But Elijah, calm and resolute like a mountain, gleamed with an otherworldly light. A flicker of fire, the miraculous power of his God, danced in his heart as he locked eyes with the crowd. He boldly stepped forward, breathing in the chilling tension. "How long will you limp between two opinions?" he shouted, his voice a clarion call that shattered the stillness. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hope flickered for just a moment, mingled with fear. They were caught between belief and doubt. Behind him, a pile of stones stood witness to countless tears, blood, and devotion. Elijah knew this was the moment. He called for the prophets of Baal to summon their power. Would it answer? The onlookers held their breath. Time stretched like a taut string. They danced and screamed. Their sacrificial offerings sizzled under the searing sun. But nothing. Just silence, an unbearable void that echoed. The crowd leaned in, whispering among themselves, disbelief sharp in the air. Could it be true? Could the God of Elijah be the one true God? A chill ran down spines as fear clawed at the fringes of their hearts. They watched with widened eyes, some hopeful, others smug in their skepticism. With sweat trickling down their brows, Elijah turned to the shadowy depths of his altar. His deep voice rang out, calling upon his God. He draped his cloak over the stones, igniting a spark of anticipation. Then, in a flash that bore the weight of 1,000 miracles, flames erupted from the earth, licking the air with a fierce brightness that left everyone breathless. Gasps morphed into cries of astonishment. The ground trembled, and the ancient stones glowed in the sacred fire. Witnessing this divine act, a collective gasp surged through the crowd. They were transformed, fearful, awestruck, changed at the core. Yet, amid this frenzy, a flicker of doubt still lingered. Had they witnessed a trick, or was it the raw power of God made tangible? Yet the revelation was clear: Elijah, a humble prophet, had defied kings before their eyes. Could there be more to this spiritual battle? Then there was a silence louder than the chaos that had preceded it. What would this newfound faith mean for the land? Could hope be reborn from the ashes of disbelief? The people stood, locked in that moment of uncertainty, their hearts racing. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the flames crackled and danced, illuminating the faces of the crowd, a profound stillness took hold. It was as if the world paused, suspended in time, each heart sinking to a rhythm of anticipation. Elijah stood at the center, his eyes reflecting the flickering fire, but also something deeper, a gleam of divine purpose that transcended mere victory. In that moment, a heavy silence hung between the earth and sky, a divine echo of what had transpired. The winds whispered, carrying tales of generations past, tales of faith and betrayal, of prophets and kings. Elijah caught snippets of these stories, their voices intertwining with the crackling of the blaze. It was a sacred narrative where hearts were tested, where each choice held significance. Amidst the thrumming hearts of the crowd, a chosen few began to step forward. One was a man named Obadiah, a steward in King Ahab's court, who had secretly protected the prophets of the Lord from the wrath of Jezebel. He found courage to speak. Elijah, is it truly God that you serve, and not a deceitful charade? Elijah turned, meeting Obadiah's gaze with the wisdom of ages. Courage is born not from power, but from the truth that resides within. The crowd shifted, murmuring amongst themselves, their faces reflecting the inner conflict. Some looked both hopeful and fearful, while others held tightly to the old ways. Yet, in that moment, a spirit of questioning began to stir. Had the pursuit of Baal given them what they sought? Or had it merely led them astray into the darkness? As the flames stilled, Elijah beckoned the people closer. Gather the stones of ancestors, let us build an altar worthy of our God. Not one of bloodshed, but one of renewal. The call echoed, heavily weighted with intent, with hesitance and a newfound determination. The crowd moved in unison. They began to gather stones, pieces of their history, remnants of a time when faith had reigned unchallenged. Each stone they placed carried memories, the collective weight of both shame and hope. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that faith needed more than theatrical proof, it needed a community reborn. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows, Elijah asked them to bow their heads. Let us pray in humility, not as beggars for miracles, but as children seeking a father. And as he spoke, something remarkable unfolded. A gentle warmth spread through the throng, washing away their doubts. Was it the air? Or was it their hearts stirring awake to a divine connection? Each person felt a shift within, a stirring that beckoned their spirits home. With eyes closed, the crowd breathed in the prayerful stillness, finding strength in their resolve to believe once more. But just as the light seemed to dawn over the horizon of their hearts, an uproar emerged from the fringes of the crowd. Dissenters, loyal to Baal, surged forward. Foolish children! Are you to leave your king for a mere flicker of flame? The tension mounted like a storm sharpened by the winds of doubt. Who would prevail in this war of the spirits? Would the God of Elijah remain steadfast against his enemies who had intertwined their fates with the winds of heresy? Elijah, sensing the palpable tension, lifted his gaze to the heavens. What sign would the Lord provide now to deepen the faith of his people? As the crowd held its breath, shadows loomed over Mount Carmel, thick and ominous, hiding secrets yet to be unveiled. Was this mob of dissenters merely puppets of fear? Or could they also find their way back to the truth, ignited by the very flame they sought to extinguish? The questions lingered, weaving through the air of the sacred ground. Would they unite under the promise of the living God, or would their hearts remain bound by the chains of disbelief? The tension thickened like a curtain before the unveiling of a great mystery. The dissenters, faces hardened by rage and loyalty to Baal, sensed their power slipping as more in the crowd turned to Elijah. He stood, unwavering, as the flames began to flicker anew, rising in defiant homage to the God he served. People of Israel! Elijah's voice rang out, echoing against the mountains. You are torn between two ways. Which will you choose? The God who answers with fire, who hears the cry of the humble, or the silent statues formed by human hands? The fervor of his words hung in the air, an invitation to introspection. Among the dissenters, a young woman named Miriam stepped forward, her face a mix of defiance and uncertainty. Do you truly believe this God will answer? What have we seen that would call us back to him? Her voice trembled, yet it held the weight of many unspoken doubts. Elijah, sensing the flicker of faith amidst the failure, replied with a calmness that belied the tumult within. Faith is often born in the fire of doubt. There is a choice to be made, not only by you, Miriam, but by all who have ever sought the truth. At that moment, a hush fell upon the crowd. Each heart beat loudly in anticipation, a collective longing for something greater than the mundane struggles of their lives. The flickering flames reflected their inner turmoil, dancing not just in the wind, but in the depths of their souls. Prepare your hearts. Elijah continued, igniting a spark of courage in those overshadowed by fear. Let the God who answers by fire be God. We shall build our altar, let us pour out our prayers and offerings. There was a stirring of winds, as if the heavens themselves began to lean in, listening. Elijah motioned toward the stones, now gleaming under the twilight sky. Some in the crowd stepped forward, hands trembling as they pushed their doubts aside. Others hesitated, torn between familiarity and a yearning for the divine. As they began to construct the altar, the young woman Miriam turned to her companions. What if we have been wrong? What if it is true that there is something greater? The question stirred something profound, igniting whispers of hope among those who felt lost, but the dissenters wouldn't relent easily. Their leader, a fierce and zealous man named Zimri, stepped forth, brandishing a staff like a sword. "You are but a remnant, Elijah. A flicker against the storm of our faith." His voice rallied those faithful to Baal, urging them to rekindle their fervor. "Brothers and sisters," Zimri shouted, "what has this prophet offered but an empty promise? A fleeting answer? Our strength lies in Baal." The crowd murmured, caught in the tug-of-war between old and new one-phased. Elijah turned to the altar, whispering under his breath, "Lord, show them your truth." As he prepared the stone altar with 12 pieces, representing the 12 tribes of Israel, he felt the weight of history pressing upon him. The choices of a nation hung delicately in balance. With each stone carefully placed, he felt the stirrings of something miraculous. Was it possible that the roots of their faith could take hold once more? Could their hearts become fertile ground for belief again when so many had strayed? As night fell completely, the air thickened with expectation. Elijah knelt before the altar, his hands cupping the earth, and called upon his God. "Let the fire of heaven ignite this sacrifice. Let there be no confusion for these people. Show them that you are indeed God." The crowd held its breath as the stillness enveloped them. Would heaven respond? Would Baal's followers witness the truth unfold before their eyes? Or would doubt snuff out the last flickering embers of faith? In that moment, Elijah sensed a stirring in the hearts around him. Were they leaning toward belief, or were they caught in the grip of fear? The question lingered, echoing into the still night. Would they choose to rally behind the God of their forefathers, or would they remain clenched in the shadows, shackled by disbelief? As the stars twinkled above, dimming the light of the flickering flames, the tension in the air thickened further. All eyes were on Elijah, whose very presence seemed to sway the hearts of some and harden the resolve of others. The dichotomy of faith and doubt played out vividly before a divided assembly, one side yearning for divine reminder, the other clinging to the familiar chains of a false god. Miriam stood among the people, confusion wrestling with the newfound glimmers of belief. Can faith truly be ignited in the heart of a people hardened by despair? She pondered silently, glancing at the other dissenters who looked on with skepticism. Yet, the brilliant hues of the altar under the moonlit sky compelled her to approach the prophet. "Elijah," she whispered, spirited yet cautious, "what if your God fails to answer? What then? Will you cast us back into the void we dread?" Her words trembled, for they echoed the fears of many, mingling with the cold night air like a hesitant plea. Elijah turned toward her, recognizing the earnest need for reassurance behind her question. "In every heart that has ever erred, God's grace lingers like a whisper, waiting to be embraced," he said softly. "Even failure can cradle faith if you let it. Will you stand with me, Miriam, even if the night remains silent?" The sincerity of his gaze cut through her doubts, but the shadows of the past loomed large. As the preparations continued, Zimri sensed the shifting sentiments and raised his voice, laced with fury and desperation. "Do not be swayed by this charlatan. Baal is mightier. Our strength lies in our devotion to him. Beware the emptiness of this prophecy." The murmur of unease rippled through the crowd, and yet within, a tremor of hope ignited, fueled by the uncertain hearts that began to reflect on their own cries in silence. Could it be that they had lost their way, shackled by the blindness of tradition? The fire of doubt mingled with the sparks of faith, illuminating questions they thought buried deep. "Gather the wood," Elijah commanded, his voice firm against the encroaching shadow. "Let us build the fire, but we must also gather our hearts. Each branch must bear the weight of our prayers." The sun dipped below the horizon, engulfing the earth in a deep blue, as the ancient trees swayed, surrendering their gifts to the altar. As the crowd worked in a mixture of urgency and trepidation, Elijah turned his attention to the heavens. "O Lord, hear our hearts. If you are indeed God, let your response be not just to me, but to all who seek your face. Let us be united in this miracle." The skies darkened, yet amidst the gathering clouds, a sense of anticipation crackled in the air. Would the heavens truly respond? The two sides braced themselves for what was to come. The prayers rose like incense, tugging at the divine, while Zimri and his loyalists threw doubts and caustic shouts against the altar being built. "You will see. This is but a simple trick," he cried out, his voice rife with disdain. But within the hearts of many, what began as flickers of curiosity slowly molded into an undeniable yearning for truth. Miriam, torn between fear and faith, closed her eyes briefly, seeking clarity. In an unguarded moment, she whispered a plea, "If there is a God who hears, let him show me." And as if in response to her silent prayer, the wind began to stir, softly at first, then swirling, carrying away the doubts that clung to the edges of her heart. The tension buzzed in the air, thick with unanswered questions. Elijah stood firm, anointed as a vessel awaiting the divine will, surrounded by hearts teetering on the brink of decision. The weight of hope and skepticism bore down on the assembly, each soul yearning for affirmation. In this tension, one inevitable truth loomed: would they dare to embrace the miracle yet unknown, or would fear gather them back into the shadows they sought to escape? In the stillness that followed, with all eyes fixed upon the altar, Elijah's spirit wrestled with anticipation. Would faith break free, or would despair reign? As the echoes of both sides washed over the crowd, a profound revelation lingered. What if the true fire awaited not just from heaven, but also from within their rekindled faith? The wind howled around Elijah, a chaotic dance that mirrored the turmoil in the hearts of the gathered people. As the last pieces of wood found their place upon the altar, their eyes glimmered with a mix of doubt and hope, souls seeking affirmation of a truth they had long buried within. The impending test loomed large, as did the weight of uncertainty that threatened to suffocate their aspirations. Miriam, now standing close to Elijah, stole glances at the crowd, where Zimri continued to incite unrest. "Look at them, Elijah," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, vibrating with the tremors of anxiety. "How can we possibly believe that the heavens would choose to listen to us? We are but wanderers in our own land, forsaken and lost." Elijah raised a hand placatingly, his brow furrowed with equal measures of concern and determination. "Miriam, you must understand that faith is not the absence of doubt, but the courage to confront it. These people stand at a crossroad, they worry and wonder if God has turned away. But our moment is not solely to see fire rain down, it is to awaken the sleeping souls among us. As the sun dipped ever lower, enveloping the gathering and deepening night, an electric energy surged through the air. "Will you stand with me? Let us proclaim our faith together," Elijah declared, his voice echoing through the stillness. "Here we are, Lord, ready and waiting." Yet Zimri's voice carried through the crowd, taunting and dismissive. "What proof will you bring to silence the winds of doubt? Words alone are nothing. Show us the might of your God, or we shall remain unwavering in our devotion to Baal." Dismissed but undeterred, Elijah's spirit surged within him. "Gather as one people, for what we seek transcends mere spectacle. Let our hearts be an altar, open and fervent with prayer. Witness this dialogue between heaven and earth, and let it reflect our readiness to embrace the truth." He paused, locking eyes with Miriam, who stood transfixed. "First, let us pour water upon the altar," he instructed. "Let this act be a symbol of our willingness to trust, like soft rain gracing the dry earth. Let it signify our hearts desperate for renewal." As buckets of water were fetched, an unusual stillness overcame the assembly. They watched in confusion as the altar, once dry and ready to burn, began to glisten under the moonlight. The listless mounds of wood absorbed the life-giving liquid, transforming from a mere structure into a vibrant testament of hope. The ritual seemed nonsensical to many, but quiet murmurs of curiosity began to mingle with their anxieties. Elijah's voice took on a steady cadence. "If God is willed to answer us, let it be known that he transcends even our stubborn notions." With that, he called for a second round of water, allowing it to cascade over the altar, saturating it in faith, fortitude, and a longing for connection that remained unspoken. At this point, Zimri scoffed loudly, his jeers falling flat as a few dissenters inwardly questioned the reliability in their physical temples. "This is madness," he shouted, but his bravado faltered as he met the eyes of those who were beginning to waver. A flicker of uncertainty illuminated the space between their fears. As night enveloped the earth, darkness gathered around the altar, wrapping it like a shroud. But inside that darkness, remnants of flickering hope ignited, contrasting against the vast desolation. Elijah raised his hands toward the sky, preparing himself to call upon the heavens. "God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, hear us now. Show us your power and light the flame of faith that dwells in us." It was a test, both of spirit and anticipation, the collective breath of a multitude crystallizing into prayer. Time felt suspended as the winds whispered secrets not yet realized, every moment stretched thick with potential and promise. But could these seeds of hope truly take root? As his voice resonated through the restless night, an unresolved truth settled among the gathered. Was the true fire yet to reveal itself, simply waiting to be awakened amidst their hearts? Or would this night end with quiet despair once again? The moment hung, taut as a bowstring, as the whisper of the divine wove through the air. Elijah's heart, so full of resolve, began to beat in rhythm with the hopes of those around him. He turned his focus from the altar, now glistening with the puddles of water that reflected the dim light of the stars, to the faces that surrounded him. Their expressions were a tapestry of longing, fear, and the faint embers of flickering belief. "Let us begin," Elijah said firmly, though a quiet tremor underlined his words. He could feel the pulse of anticipation in the darkness, a living thing that breathed alongside them. In this moment, we stand at the threshold of our history, a people faced with a choice between despair and faith. Let this night be a testament to what we believe, a demonstration that our God is with us, no matter how distant he may seem. Elijah knelt by the altar, the cool dampness soaking into his robes as he placed his palms upon the soaked wood. His voice rose, a resonant call amidst the cool night breeze. "O Lord, God of Israel, answer us this day." His words poured forth like a river, persistent and unyielding. "Let them know that you are the true God, and that we are your servants, turning our hearts to you." As the echoes of his prayer lingered, a hush fell upon the crowd, not a whisper escaping their lips. In that silence, however, Zimri remained a tempestuous specter, darting among the people, urging them to cling to their forsaken faith. "What is this?" he chortled, though uncertainty crept into his tone, like shadows creeping over the horizon. "You would place your trust in words alone? Look at your soaked offering. It is a grave." His laughter rang out, but it was now coupled with a tremor of concern. Yet behind him, curiosity sparked anew. The air thickened with energy, as murmurs of agreement began to bubble among the onlookers. "Shall we not wait for a sign?" asked one voice timidly. What if the doubt drifted, offering space for new thoughts to flourish? Whispers ignited a clandestine flame among them, the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, they were on the cusp of witnessing something extraordinary. "Elijah." Miriam's voice broke through the tension. "Is there more we should do? Shall we not offer up our own hearts as candidates for this miracle?" A heavy silence loomed, but there was something more profound brewing within Elijah. He breathed deeply, closing his eyes momentarily to draw from the well of courage weaved within him. "You have spoken wisely, Miriam," he said, allowing her suggestion to settle within him. "Let us seek God not just with our mouths, but with every part of our being. Let our hearts be laid bare." Elijah turned again to the crowd, to their sometimes narrowed eyes weeping with fear, a beautiful sight of possibility, of souls yearning for connection. "If you wish to stand united, then let us remind the heavens of our collective suffering. Let us give him our fears, our pain, as an offering more splendid than any sacrifice. In this moment of vulnerability, we will birth a new flame of unity and hope." As he spoke, he began to lead them in a shared confession of their weaknesses. Tell the Lord your struggles. Cry out your burdens as one, that he may understand the depth of your yearnings. The air trembled as voices lifted into the night, raw and earnest. "Please, let us return to the dawn. We have wandered far and lost our way. Please, O God, hear our cries. Let your forgotten ones know they are remembered." Elijah opened his eyes to find that indeed the heavens were stirring. Clouds swirled against the velvety night, as if drawn together by an unseen hand. The people's voices rose and fell, like waves crashing against the shore, a flood of confessions flowing toward the Almighty. In this moment, the altar's saturation transformed from mere water into a sacred pool, reflecting souls renewed with trembling anticipation. Yet, amid this movement towards the divine, a question pulsed within the gathering, reverberating through hearts and minds. In our unearthing of faith and fragility, would the heavens respond, or would it all remain shrouded in silence? As the pleas of the gathered echoed against the stones of the altar, a strange stillness seemed to grip the very air around them. The fervent voices of the people cast shadows upon the doubts that clung to their hearts. Elijah, with his spirit ignited by the collective yearning, remained kneeling at the altar, constraining his own uncertainty in the quest for divine connection. At that moment, an unsettling breeze whispered through the crowd, mingling with the solemnity of their confessions. Elijah felt it like a harbinger, signaling that something momentous was on the edge of unfolding. "Hold fast," he called out, fearing the tendency toward despair that often folds over hope. "Our cries have risen to the heavens. We must wait with hearts open, like flowers yearning for the sun. As they remained, disparate yet unified in spirit, a sudden crack of thunder tore through the night sky, startling the crowd. Some jumped back, eyes wide with fear, while others, emboldened by the tempest, turned their faces skyward with eager anticipation. "Look!" a man shouted, pointing toward the horizon where dark clouds swirled, pregnant with potential. The flickering light of the stars dimmed, as if the cosmos itself withheld its breath. Elijah's heart raced. He recognized the moment he had yearned and prayed for, a direct challenge to the stony silence that had plagued their lives. "Do not turn away," he implored them, sensing the fragility of collective faith. "This is the moment of truth. Keep your eyes focused." But even as he spoke, Zimri, machinations of doubt surfacing anew, confronted the emerging atmosphere of expectancy. He gestured toward the darkness, his brow furrowed. "What makes you believe the heavens will heed your cries? Are we not but shadows, destined to dissipate?" His words dripped with sarcasm, yet they cut through the hopeful facade Elijah worked to maintain. "Zimri," a woman shouted, her voice trembling yet fierce, "you would have us cower before fear? Look around. We are not alone." Murmurs of defiance arose as a few moved forward, emboldened by her declaration. With their spirits momentarily reignited, the crowd began to chant once more, reiterating their collective supplication. They were trembling under the weight of decades of silence, yet the convergence of their voices summoned a heartbeat, a rhythm to the uncertainty that enveloped them. Then, as the moon retreated behind the gathering storm clouds, a brilliant flash of light illuminated the landscape like an explosion of stars. The onlookers gasped, falling silent in awe, casting glances at one another, the flicker of hope now more palpable. Amid the apprehension, the air transformed, charged with a vibrant expectancy. Elijah stood tall, resoluteness now shining in his eyes. "O Lord, God of Israel, show us your signs. Let us witness your power, feel your presence among us." Just as the clouds began to rotate ominously overhead, a low rumble echoed from the heavens, reverberating deep within their beings. The air crackled with energy, drawing the people closer, binding their souls together in purpose. They held their breath, yearning for the culmination of their hopes. Then, as if the skies themselves were deciding, a single ray of light descended, illuminating the altar. The waters pooled beneath the altar shimmered, transforming into a mirror of celestial brilliance, capturing the wonder of what was to come. Elijah's heart thudded in unsteady rhythm. This was the moment they had all longed for, yet anticipation hung thick with the weight of risk. But in that brightness, amid the explosions of indecipherable emotions, one pressing thought crept into Elijah's mind. Was this sign meant to solidify their devotion, or was it a prelude to a deeper call yet unimagined? As the heavens glowed, the crowd stood suspended between hope and trepidation, each heart lingering on the precipice of a divine revelation. Would this sign be their salvation, or merely an echo leading them to a more profound understanding of their trials? As the mighty winds churned, a new question arose within: could faith compel them beyond mere signs and lead them into a deeper surrender? As the shimmering light surrounded the altar, an unforeseen hush swept over the crowd, drawing even the most hardened skeptics into a fragile embrace of wonder. Elijah's gaze shifted from the radiant reflection of the waters to the faces of the people, each expression a tapestry of hope, fear, and an emerging faith. Moments stretched into eternity as silence reigned, filling the spaces between thoughts and combative emotions that threatened to rise again. Suddenly, the darkness overhead seemed to peel back, revealing a crackling sky that pulsed with energy. The crowd collectively exhaled, as if inhaling the very essence of possibility. Just then, a voice like thunder echoed down, penetrating through the veil of doubt. "Elijah, is your faith unwavering? Will you stand even before fire and earth?" Elijah's heart pounded at this direct question, and he raised his arms heavenward, responding with a fervent conviction. "O Lord, I will stand. May your glory be revealed today." The depth of his own declaration astonished him. In that moment, he recognized that faith required not just acceptance of miraculous signs but the surrender to the path ahead, fraught with uncertainty. As the light intensified, it transformed into luminous clouds swirling as though alive, beckoning the faithful. The nature of the flames of faith was now palpable. The flickers of light danced dangerously close, electrifying the atmosphere filled with unspoken prayers. The loyal gathered together, hands clasped tightly, while the murmurs of doubt dimmed under the brilliance of their shared resolve. Then, without warning, a bolt of lightning crashed down, striking the altar and splitting the earth, planting itself deep in the soil. The very rocks shuddered as the roar of the heavens and the clash of forces collided, resonating with a divine proclamation. The waters pooled around the altar started to boil and steam, shimmering with hues unimaginable, yet, even with such visible signs, Zimri's shadow lingered in Elijah's mind. Was the spectacle meant merely to astonish, or was it something more profound, a call toward a sacred journey? Elijah recalled the words of the ancients: impatience in seeking divine understanding often led communities astray. Sensing an invitation from both the heavens and the hearts of the people, he channeled his own uncertainty, hoping to guide them through the tumult. Witness the power of our God! He shouted, snapping the crowd from their stupor. Let the fire ignite not only this altar but our very hearts. We stand at a crossroads, a threshold between despair and unwavering faith. The miracle unfolded before them. Tongues of light broke from above, connecting the heavens and earth, encapsulating the solemn assembly with a divine warmth. As their faces glowed in the ethereal light, Elijah sensed the pull of something ancient and sacred, resonating within the depths of their collective soul. Could it be the spark of a new alliance with God, a new covenant set to arise in the face of adversity? But just as hope surged through their veins, the voice in the storm changed tone, its authority now more palpable. Elijah! What do you seek? The question pierced through the din like an arrow, and the weight of its implication bore heavily upon him. Was it merely victory he craved, or something deeper, transcending mere signs and wonders? As the wind howled around him, stirring leaves into a frenzy, he pondered within his heart: was true faith the result of witnessing miracles, or was it forged in trusting the unknown paths laid before them? Elijah's thoughts danced with uncertainty, the vibration of questions igniting his soul anew. Why was he compelled to ask for signs if the essence of faith was trusting without seeing? In this moment of overwhelming divine presence, a new revelation beckoned him. Perhaps the essence of faith was not only in the miracles witnessed but also in the love and courage to traverse the unlit paths. And so, as the storm raged, Elijah found his spirit caught between the majesty of the divine and the frailty of human understanding. What power awaits those who dare to deepen their faith without needing the veil of signs? What might emerge when they lean into the unfathomable embrace of trust? In the aftermath of the tumultuous revelation, the crowd stood silent, their hearts a tapestry woven with astonishment and introspection. The altar, now a vessel of divine energy, pulsed like a heartbeat, bridging the realms of the earthly and ethereal. Elijah felt the weight of their gaze, a reflection of his own inner turmoil. How could a simple man bear the mantle of such profound expectation and uncertainty? Moments stretched into reflections, and as the crowd remained transfixed by the luminous spectacle, the voice in the storm echoed again, this time softer yet insistent. Elijah, answer me, what is it you yearn for among my people? A brief hesitation held him captive, the enormity of the moment pressing against his chest like the very winds howling around them. His faith, once buoyed by certainty, now wavered between the abyss of pride and the embrace of humility. Why had he risen to challenge the worshippers of Baal? Was it merely to prove the sovereignty of his God, or was it an awakening to a larger truth beckoning him? Lord, Elijah replied, his voice steady yet filled with a newfound vulnerability, I seek not my own glory, but the redemption of Israel. I desire that my people might turn from the darkness that has gripped their hearts, to see your light and return to the covenant forged in love. As these words spilled forth, Elijah felt an energy shift around him, as if the very fabric of creation bent to listen. The luminous clouds hovering above twirled and brightened, weaving their message into the hearts of all who listened. A soft hum resonated through the landscape, and the wind seemed to swirl in affirmation. Through this atmosphere, a figure emerged from the throng, a woman with eyes that held the depth of sorrow and strength. It was Jezebel, the queen whose presence echoed fury and despair among the people. She stepped forward, her voice both mocking and caustic. And will your God come to vanquish my servants with mere words? Show us a miracle. Or will your faith falter before the might of the steadfast? The crowd murmured at her challenge, the air thick with expectation and tension. Would Elijah's resolve crumble before a taunt? Or would this be his moment of clarity amidst chaos? Jezebel, Elijah stood firm, the spirit rising within him as electric as the storm swirled above. It is not in the single act of a miracle that faith is born. It is in the journey of trust amid adversity. Why do you seek proof, when the evidence lies within our hearts? With this declaration, a paradox emerged, holding the crowd suspended between belief and skepticism. The miracles displayed were astounding, yet it was the deeper calling of the heart that needed nurturing. Sensing this division among the onlookers, Elijah resolved that it was not enough for him to present signs, he must invite them into a greater narrative. Come, people of Israel. Elijah's voice rang with an urgency. Let us gather our fears and our hopes, for they are threads richly woven into our shared tale. Let the fires of truth burn in our midst, not just here, but in all hearts yearning for guidance. Miracles will come, but so too must our commitment to walk the path laid out before us. The wind stilled momentarily, drawing closer as the crowd swayed in response, faces reflecting a myriad of internal struggles. In this instant, Elijah sensed their collective yearning, a space opening that demanded acknowledgement of both fear and hope, allowing space for the divine to intertwine with their reality. Yet, as the moments lingered, Zimri's presence loomed larger in Elijah's mind, a reminder of dissent, of voices not yet quelled. Would the call of unity among the faithful be enough to ignite a transformative journey, or would they succumb to the darkness that Zimri represented? As the light shone brighter still, Elijah wondered, what is a miracle worth if it does not evoke movement within the soul? And could a prophet ever truly lead if the path of belief must first traverse the valleys of uncertainty together? As the heavens crackled with intensity, Elijah stood at the altar, the collective fervor of the crowd beating like a drum against the tempest swirling around them. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable yearning for truth and connection lingering among the people. They were no longer just onlookers, they were a tapestry intertwined in a quest for divine revelation, woven together by their cries for redemption and hope. Elijah pivoted, confronting the gathered multitude with renewed vigor. People of Israel, look at this altar, soaked in water, alive with our prayers. This display is not simply for spectacle, it is a commitment to a path of faith that demands our hearts, our resolve, and our steps toward the light, regardless of what we see. Then, as if summoned by the urgency of his spirit, the winds began to swirl with deafening intensity, and the clouds above roared in response. A heavy silence enveloped the crowd, hearts raced, and uncertainty gripped even the most stalwart among them. They hovered on the brink of a moment that felt inevitable, the unraveling of their doubts, or deepening despair. Let us join our voices, let us offer our fears, our hopes, all we have within us, Elijah urged passionately. As we call upon the God of our ancestors, let our commitment to faith fall not just upon ears above, but upon every trembling soul before me. He raised his arms skyward, and the wind, now a powerful force, seemed to respond, echoing his call. In one voice, unified and fervent, the people began to cry out, "O Lord, we surrender our doubts. We bow before you, not just expecting fire from the heavens, but seeking your restorative love." This was their collective offering, a moment of vulnerability that shimmered amidst their fears, casting a repellent to doubt and awakening something profound within. As if honoring their commitment to seek the divine, a single flicker of lightning pierced through the clouds, illuminating the altar with a blinding light. The ground shook, not with terror, but with a resonance of affirmation. Then, without hesitation, the sky opened, and rain began to fall, gentle at first, then with increasing fervor. It mingled with the flames, igniting them into a conflagration of a purifying fire that reached upwards as a bridge between heaven and earth. An astonished gasp swept through the crowd, for in that moment, faith transformed into experience. The flames did not merely consume, they danced divinely, revealing a vivid brilliance that set the soaked altar aglow, breathing life into their hearts and weaving together what had been divided. Miriam, who had stood wrestling with grief and skepticism, felt a warmth spread through her, washing over her doubts as she looked around at those gathered, all caught in awe of the miracle unfolding before them. "See the answer for all who call upon him," Elijah shouted, now transformed by the divine presence shared with them. "The God we serve is not a distant figure to be appeased with rituals, but an ever-present flame urging us toward renewal. This fire is a symbol of his undying love." As the congregation witnessed the heavens affirming their spirits' longing, a collective awakening took place. Realization dawned upon the assembly, coaxing dormant faith from within them. The cold grip of despair began to slip away as understanding unfolded like wildflowers reaching for their light. They hadn't merely summoned fire from above, they had ignited a rekindling of hope within each other, an emotional and spiritual renewal fanned by shared vulnerability. Even Zimri, caught in the frenzy of the flames, felt the slightest tremor of hesitation wash over him. The stirrings of his heart mirrored the tumult of the air. Could he, too, have missed the point? Was he clinging to binds of allegiance that could never satisfy the soul? As doubt crept into him like a thief in the night, echoes of the truth he had long ignored gnawed at the edges of his heart, a gentle challenge to consider the weight of devotion, rooted in reality rather than mere tradition. In this moment of transcendence, as hearts united before the altar, something extraordinary unfolded, not just for Elijah but for all present. They discovered that true faith is not dependent on signs or spectacles alone. It blossomed in surrendering the very essence of their being, revealing a sacred journey of connection and love that bound them to one another in a purpose beyond themselves. All those who have strayed, Elijah called out, let this fire be a beacon. No longer just an altar, it is now a symbol of our renewed covenant. From here, we shall teach our children and their children the importance of love, truth, and faith. The flames crackled as if in agreement, sending embers toward the heavens where so many prayers had risen. In that moment, the crowd understood that they stood at a new beginning. They weren't merely followers of miracles, they were the architects of intimacy, forging a bond among each other that transcended monarchs and beliefs. They had ventured into vulnerability together, willing to leave behind their rigid adherence to doubt and stride united into a realm where faith flourished, a mysterious dance with the divine, full of risk yet offering an abundance of grace. From that day forward, the people were transformed. As they turned away from their old allegiances, they remember this moment of awakening. They returned to their villages spreading tales of the miracle event built not just on fire in the heavens, but on the fires ignited within their hearts. A new wave of belief surged through the land, a narrative spiraling beyond the confines of their expectations, awakening and mending, rippling through generations to come. And as Elijah gazed upon the devoted assembly, something stirred deeply within him, a profound awareness that perhaps the greatest miracle was not the fire that fell, but the rebirth of their hearts, each person daring to embrace faith anew. Their journey transcended mere adherence to the miraculous, marking their encounter with the true essence of devotion, a relentless pursuit of connection with the divine and with one another. In those powerful moments beneath the radiant sky, they had rewritten their destiny, bridging the gap between heaven's promise and earth's longing, and in doing so, they forged a truth that echoed through the ages. Faith is not simply believing in the impossible, but the unwavering courage to embrace the mystery of the journey it demands.